Hello and welcome to another Rick and Morty review with my friend ChardBotham.
Hey, it's me, friend ChardBotham.
We are talking about the new episode of Rick and Morty. It's called Never Ricking Morty. Is it a play
Which
on
is
words?
it's a play on words of um except I don't know. I tried to find it. I assumed it would be never fucking something
it's
or
all part.
something, but like
It's all part of the themes.
oh yeah, that it's a random title this time that isn't based on anything because it's just random bullshit.
Yes, it's all part of the theme of the episode. So Chard, how does it feel to go back into Rick and Morty? Just before we go into it.
It feels like I was having a pretty good quarantine and spending my time how I wanted, and then this 20 minutes of Rick and Morty took 20 years off my life.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's like I'm glad that we get to do these discussions again, but like the actual process of watching the show um, with episodes like this has become excruciating.
Yeah, I have to say that this is the episode that killed Rick and Morty. The day Rick and Morty died.
The day Rick and Morty died. The episode Never Ricking Morty.
Never Ricking Morty, Season 4, Episode 6, is definitely the death of Rick and Morty. Man, I
Dan
don't
Harmon exposes himself with his own story circle. But how did he do this?
That was the bit
Let's
where
get
I was
into
like,
it.
oh my god.
That's where I actually paused and just stared at the screen for like a full minute
That he's like
in
actually,
disbelief that it had gotten this bad.
like, I understand the need to use the story circle, but I also find gloating about it to be the oddest thing.
Yeah, well, it's in this weird place where he's trying to honestly, like a lot of stuff in this episode, including the story circle thing, is like Dan Harmon trying to be self-aware and like almost kind of self-deprecating, but
Yeah.
he's also putting himself above like absolutely everything that he's addressing and talking about in this episode. So he thinks he's like the best fucking like genius writer of all time, but also is just whining like, good writing is hard, guys. And then
Yeah.
like whatever the fuck is
Pretty-
going on with the story circle,
the
like, oh, this is funny, but also I'm a genius because I made the train the story circle. Like, I don't know what the fuck he's even trying to say.
So here's here's my main note about this is that this whole episode, none of it makes any kind of logical or reasonable or substantiated statement about storytelling. Like there's no, then he's not even trying to say anything about storytelling in any way, like other than what it's difficult.
Yeah, other than just it's hard, guys, because we have to make it. What were the three things that are filling up on the meters? Like, it has to be relatable, marketable, and like have broad appeal. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so. I think
So
that was it.
trying to
I took a
balance all three of those
screenshot.
things is so hard.
So yeah, I mean, let's just go through it scene by scene, and I think all our thoughts will just come naturally oozing out of it.
As a preamble, though, we should say apparently they think that this is the anthology episode of this season, so analogous to Interdimensional Cable or Morty's Mind Blowers,
Yeah, I
where
think
it's like a
it might
series
have been
of
made.
vignettes with a common theme.
It might have been made with Justin Roiland just like improvising, like in the room. It does kind of feel
Most
like
of the
that.
vignettes probably were, yeah,
That like the whole thing.
with the connective tissue of Dan Harmon's weird, insecure soapbox shit about storytelling and a bunch of other shit.
Yeah, it seems like Justin Roiland went into the studio probably drunk, like ready to just come in with some just like fire material, but then he just spent the whole time just like coming out with unfunny like riffs that like didn't really go anywhere, and then Dan Harmon tried to like Frankenstein it together.
I do think it's funny that this is the first one that they've come back with after a long hiatus,
I know,
which
man.
they only took because they couldn't figure the season out. And then once they come back, it's them complaining about how difficult.
And
it
I
was to
swear
write
they
this
did
season.
this earlier as well, where they just weren't really like insecure about their own writing ability. Probably the
Yeah,
toilet
yeah.
episode, they did that as well.
Yeah, or in the premiere, like something that we mentioned in that discussion was that it seems like they're very much on the defensive, and they're not really sure what they're doing with their continuity and all this stuff. And so, yeah, like you said, just their insecurities as a writer bleeding through directly onto the page, but in a way that is very aggressive toward the fans. Like
Yeah.
it's our fault for getting invested in this show and wanting it to be good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think that's sort of it, and that's a very like kind of bitter way to hold your like audience. I find
Yeah.
like kind of like you shouldn't expect us to be good.
Like we're only people, guys. I mean, the
Come
show is better
on.
than everything else that exists, but also fuck you for thinking that or expecting that from it because we keep thinking of it that way. Anyway, I'm putting a lot of words in the writers' mouths, but basically, just as a base premise, the fact that they're considering this an anthology episode with vignettes or whatever already doesn't really work, because at least Interdimensional Cable and Morty's Mind Blowers actually had a unifying theme where they could be a bunch of like very different types of things, but they all do have like actual connective tissue behind them. Where the connective tissue of this is, it's all random bullshit that doesn't make sense, and a lot of the time it is written to be bad on purpose, and bad on purpose is still bad.
Yeah, yeah. I think
So
I found the first time I watched this, I did laugh quite a lot, and that's because you usually laugh at stuff that you find unpredictable, and like so much of the humor is just like random.
yeah.
And then when I watched it a second time, that was when I was really like, oh, it's not actually that funny.
Oh.
So it kind of opens on this space train, and immediately like I'm thinking of Snowpiercer, like Agatha Christie, like kind of that Doctor Who episode on the train, like some actually good like sci-fi concepts or mystery concepts or just storytelling devices that can take place on a train.
Yeah, and like use the train to represent something. Like the fact that it's on a train isn't incidental to the story.
Yeah, well, I
Like
mean, the idea
Snowpiercer
that
has this beautiful metaphor about like the perpetuation of global capitalism, and this train is just a fucking train. Because I
yeah.
guess it's easy to turn it into a circle that can be the story circle, but like, I'm getting ahead of myself with that. But, yeah, it's on a train. Fuck you.
It's just a train. And then it goes into it, and you have this kind of like bar scene, which kind of reminded me of Desperado. Have you seen Desperado?
No,
So basically, like, there's a scene where Steve Buscemi's in a bar, and he's describing this kind of scene with this like gun wielding bandit, basically, and it's like a really impressive monologue. But yeah, this story that this guy tells, Aya James, is kind of just like something we've all seen before.
yeah, it's just the trademark boring Rick and Morty violence.
Yeah,
Where stuff explodes and there's not really any character to it, and then it's just done.
yeah, essentially. I mean, and then I think the idea that like everyone on the train like wants to kill Rick could have been kind of interesting, right? There was something there.
Yeah, I mean, if like the actual starting premise that they go with, which is a train full of people obsessed with Rick, and Rick and Morty are like pretending to be other people on the train. Like if they had actually fleshed that out into a full mystery somehow, like I don't know what that would look like, but there might have been something there. But they don't actually give it time to turn into anything substantive at all, because it just immediately goes off the rails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally off the rails.
Comedy. Taking notes from this episode about how to be funny and do jokes. Yeah. No, I was immediately annoyed by this though, because and the fact that it turns out to not actually be what the episode is about kind of makes this better. But I was annoyed that the episode immediately opened with a bunch of people talking about how important and special and cool Rick is. And then there's even a nod later in the episode where they deliberately, like,
Yeah.
in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way, mention how Rick is a god or whatever.
Yeah, they
Or say
say
they're kind
no
of
rules,
making
no
fun of
rise,
themselves, but-
no rules apply for you. Burping, semi-improvised dialogue about how nothing matters.
and nothing matters. Yeah,
Nihilism.
but they're not like. But
But now they
in a way
know.
they're
Now they
self-aware, but they're not
know.
actually changing. They're not actually changing any of that stuff.
No, they're just
At least
aware
not
of
on a
it.
that we've
They're
seen
aware
yet,
of
yeah.
it.
Being aware and still doing it makes it worse. Like that's worse than just not being aware.
As well, I just as well want to get into the fact that I was so excited to see Eye Patch Morty come back. That was like the one thing I was holding on to.
And I as I've made very clear before, don't want them to do anything with the continuation of Eye Patch Morty. So I kind of enjoy that they just threw him in this terrible episode and probably will do nothing with him ever again.
Do you think they were just because they say now that meta stuff is out the way, we can just go back to being like original Rick and Morty.
But they're not actually gonna fucking do that.
Yeah,
they've been very fuck, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I guess I'll just say like very obviously annoyed about that ever since even just the beginning of the season with like fascist authoritarian Morty.
Yeah.
Of how the fans want them to just go back to classic Rick and Morty stuff without any meta commentary, and that's because the fans are stupid and not because all their meta commentary stuff is really, really bad and poorly executed. But like, I don't think that with this episode they're saying that they're actually going to do that, because it seems pretty clear that that's not what they want to do. Like, I think Dan Harmon is holding himself up on a very high pedestal with this episode, with all of his various opinions about different like movements and groups of people and shit. And I don't think that he's willing to give that up to make the show entertaining again.
He has a reference to like feminism.
Yeah, the feminism one, I have a lot of thoughts about. But
Go
there
on,
are
let's
other
hear
ones
your
too,
thoughts.
like all his weird like like his thing about Christianity and like whether it's offensive because we portrayed Jesus like he saved the day. Tell me how that's offensive. And like the NoFap movement as well. And like some of these are things where I agree with him on how like stupid these movements are or whatever, but also like it's just this like the closest this episode comes to having a unifying theme is Dan Harmon feels above this group of people, and he's going to talk about it and have a very like shallow, unsubstantiated opinion about it, and then he's going to move on to the next one, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, just a little poke. He's just going to give him a little poke and move on.
Yeah.
He's
going to destroy feminism by completely misunderstanding what the Bechdel test is and what it's for.
Yeah, I mean, did you obviously knew about that, right? I didn't even know anything about it.
I did, yeah. So I guess we'll just talk about this now. So what I took from the episode in terms of what it was saying about feminism and the Bechdel test and all that shit is it's like criticizing feminism or like feminist critique, I guess, for as in the sense that he's saying putting something passing the Bechdel test doesn't make it good, which is the whole point of this segment with Summer and Beth, right? Is they just do some random bullshit that technically passes the Bechdel test, but it's still really, really bad. And then when it's over, Rick says, like basically looks directly into the camera and says, "Another feminist masterpiece." And the thing is that that's not what the Bechdel test is for. Like it's not used to determine whether by feminists or whatever, whether something is good or substantially feminist. It's meant to be used on a broad scale and applied to a lot of things, and then looked at as a whole to show that a lot, like a shocking number of things don't pass that very basic test, which if you were to reverse it, like say the rules were the work of fiction has to have two named male characters who talk to each other about something other than a woman. Like, how many things pass that? Basically everything.
Right.
So it's meant to show on a broad scale the imbalance that exists there.
It's not like a checklist.
No, yeah, it's not a checklist for being feminist or even just being good, because there are a lot of things that don't pass the Bechdel test that have strong like
artistic,
I guess
merits.
You could say, yeah, or even or could be considered
because like Lord of the Rings wouldn't even pass that.
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think of like I think of Ex Machina as an example. Like I don't think that Ex Machina could be really considered sexist, and I don't know, maybe it could, but like um in the way that it's kind of about like all that you could read it as like a tale of sexual liberation almost. But that movie definitely doesn't pass the Bechdel test because it just has such a small cast of characters, with like two men and two women, and one of the women doesn't talk, which isn't because the writer like didn't have anything for her to do. Like it was part of the themes of that movie that she didn't have a voice for herself. So like that's a very specific example, but that's something that doesn't pass the Bechdel test. Whereas there are things that do pass the Bechdel test, but would have like much more questionable
Right.
messaging in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Anyway, so not to get too deeply into that, but basically, it's like very clear that Dan Harmon understands what the Bechdel test is, but he doesn't understand what it's for. And so this whole sequence where he's like, "See, I proved that feminism is stupid by making something bad that passes the Bechdel test," is
Yeah.
like, it just I was just so I was embarrassed for him while I was watching this because
Yeah, cuz
it's
I mean I I guess it's not even like as clever as Cheers for the Follow. It's not even as clever as something like their episode they did about like what makes a good story, which was the episode with Mr. Meeseeks in it, like because they were off doing like a kingdom story. And it does seem like they are just completely out of ideas, and they are just reincorporating all of their like best ideas into like shit essentially, because it's like
yeah,
the whole question of like what makes a good story they've already tackled. The whole idea of like simulated like realities has already been like done. Like the idea of like them being trapped in some sort of like simulation has been done. Like, and they're just like constantly like at a point where they're just like repeating themselves now.
yeah, they had like four really good ideas, and now they're just doing them the same over and over again, but worse every time, and with more like meta wink job bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is not. I can't even like truthfully say this episode was about like what makes a good story.
No, not at all. And that's like very clearly what it should have been, given what they were
Yeah,
dealing with. But
yeah. Because it's like they kind of like they're kind of on one side doing like short little bits, um, all around the idea of like what make like all around the concept of storytelling and being trapped inside like a story device, and like deconstructing storytelling, um and then at the end they don't really have a point to it, and they kind of didn't really make it for any particular reason, and then
well, if they knew the answer, then they would just do that, and then the episode would be good, and we wouldn't have to deal with this.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like I hate it when, and Rick and Morty like has done this I think twice before, when they just end it with like a shrug of the shoulders and one character goes, "Oh, like what was that even meant to be?" And he goes like, "Oh, I don't know, like nothing." Like, and then it
Oh yeah,
ends.
they do the joke again where Morty says, I think we really learned something and grew as a team today," and Rick goes, whatever,
No, we
fuck
didn't.
you.
Nihilism.
No, it's nothing matters, which we'll make fun of us saying that and say it again
Yeah, and
so
I
many
mean,
times.
and then okay, so this is the story circle in question.
Oh my
Um,
god.
th- this, and it says anthology like there as well, and then this is the device they stuck up: marketability, broad appeal, and relatability. Um, so like, do they even follow like a story circle at all? I don't really think they do.
Kind of like they have the re-entering the threshold thing. What, what's funny about it is that I pulled up the story circle just to make sure that I like knew exactly what each of the segments of it were, and I was comparing it to what Rick was saying about the various like parts of it, and for the most part it seemed to line up pretty well, like where they re-enter the threshold, like where things have been established and they can move on with the story. um but he like points at the last one and says the engine must be here, when supposedly the character gets what they want at like number 5
Right.
on the segment, and like I don't think that really happens I don't know. I
No.
mean, I guess it kind of, because you could argue they get to the engine room at about that point in the episode,
Yeah.
which I guess just makes Rick wrong about it. But so in terms of just that individual moment of Rick pointing out segments and trying to compare them to what their plan is, it doesn't really line up completely. So it's hard to really glean anything from that, at least on a plot level. And
Yeah.
like I don't know. I mean, this episode obviously doesn't have anything substantial for the characters to try to
Well,
achieve
we're not
or
even
anything, because they're
watching
just trying to
the
do some
Rick and
plot bullshit.
Morty we even follow, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, because it's just like the Citadel
It's quite
ones.
confusing and like hard to follow on purpose. Like another thing is like after that happens, I don't know if I grabbed a screenshot of it. After this, they climb up aboard to try and get in, and like Rick puts like a timer on him to say that there has to be like agency, like you have to like get there within a minute or something, right?
Like we have to create stakes, because if it's
Yeah,
too easy for you to get the thing you want, then the
then it
audience
will
becomes
make a bad
uninvested or something.
story. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why are they now trying to make a good story? Like they're not trapped inside a story, they're now like part of it, right?
Well, yeah, because Rick isn't actually an autonomous character anymore with like his own wants and needs and shit. He's just Dan Harmon's mouthpiece and
Yeah.
Justin Roiland's improv mouthpiece.
Yeah, it's like that's what it is, and it's like they could have very easily had Rick be like, "Oh, come on, like we got to get up to the like engine," like they could have easily been like, "Oh, this device will only let us through if we tell it like a good story or some shit," right? But they just went like, "Now we're being meta, like we can just like directly speak to our audience and like tell them what we're doing."
Yeah, I think that's one of the many overarching problems with this episode, is that there isn't like a central tension established at any point, especially toward the beginning when it would be really important to do that.
And just
And it's
because
hard to even. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just because they're like meta about it, it doesn't mean that like it fulfills my expectations or my needs as an audience member.
Yeah, like it just because you're speaking directly to the audience doesn't give you the excuse to not actually do things with the story that you are telling under that.
Yeah.
I think the show Fleabag on Amazon Prime is a very good example of that. So there's my plug for the day
Or
of a show
BBC
that's better than Rick and
iPlayer.
Morty that everybody should go watch. Um,
Man, that's old. It really got to the States late.
oh really?
Yeah, man.
Oh, I assumed it like, well, because I mean the last season came out for everybody just last year, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. We don't have to talk about Fleabag.
Anyway, so let me see. So it feels like film studenty. Like
Oh
because
my god, yeah, it really
every
does.
time you're like writing something and you can't think of a way to write it and you're writing like some sort of comedy, you will just like to get yourself out of it, you'll just write the easier solution is to just get meta. Like the main thing is like a film student trying to make, he's like there's a film about him trying to make a film or like trying to come up with an idea for a film, like, and it feels very much like, oh, they're in a train, like, oh, why are they in the train? It's like, oh, it's just like, it's like a story device, and we're like, yeah, I know, but what's the reason? No, that's what they say. And then like every single aspect of the episode is just like a shrug of the shoulders. It's just like so just like blasé and just like, yeah, whatever. Like this kind of like whatever.
Yeah, just random bullshit
Like
for the
even
sake
the
of random
villain,
bullshit.
like Story Lord, like the whole point of it is that like he doesn't really care and he's not really thought through at all. But like it would have been kind of interesting to have like a Rick and Morty like fan who really wants to like see the best possible like stories, right? That would at least given it like
Or like as
something.
that character.
Yeah, like, and he's just trying to, he wants like, he's like, I want to know about Eye Patch Morty, and he like, you know, like he's really wants to find out more information about like, he wants to find out more stories. He's like the ultimate like fan. I don't know. I'm just
And
saying
that's
like,
why they have to try to tell a good story, is to like appease the
yeah,
rabid fan or something. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
think that would have been really pretentious and would have just been like a worse, more aggressive version of the stuff they already did in the premiere episode. but also that would have been a lot more interesting. Because as I've been thinking about this episode since I watched it last night, I keep trying to remember like who you said he's called Story Lord,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to remember like what his name is or what he looks like or what he does, what his deal is. And I just haven't been able to remember because I think he's maybe one of the least interesting characters they've ever written for
Well,
this
yeah,
show.
exactly. He's just like a guy, and that's like the whole point of it. What I've got written down is, it's not supposed to be good. That's the whole point.
Yeah, you're stupid if you don't like this. Like if you don't like this and you say the reason is because it's bad, well, fuck you. It was
It's
bad on purpose.
supposed to be. It's supposed to be, and that's why it's funny.
And if that's your excuse for it, like, I mean, I guess we can't prove you wrong, but like, I don't know. Like,
It's
what
I've also written was Inception, but without any integrity or structure.
Yeah, I mean, it's because Inception has holes, but at least it tries.
At least it's actually like trying. Like
It has character arcs. It has
Yeah,
characters.
it has characters, and this is the thing as well, which I was really disappointed by, is that like we see these other characters like this girl and this guy with the gun, like, and they're kind of like interesting character designs, and I quite liked the idea of having a Rick and Morty episode that has like completely different protagonists, and we're kind of seeing like the Rick stuff like through them.
Yeah,
But like they just had to immediately go into Rick and Morty again. Like it was like they couldn't really do it. They couldn't make
which would
any
be fine if the
more.
Rick and Morty stuff was still good, but I
Well,
guess that's not a given anymore. So.
It was all just like a pointless like waste of time, because then it's just they might as well have just started with them being on the train and being like, what the hell, I don't remember how we got here. But it's like,
I think what you mentioned about how the character designs are really interesting. Points to something that's, I think, becoming a recurring theme for the show, is that the best thing about it really is the animation.
yeah, I mean,
Like,
absolutely.
the people in the animation department are like very inventive and work very, very hard on even the most like
Look at this.
minimally
I mean,
important
like this
character design.
ice sculpture, like with all these like characters, and there's like time itself there at this dinner table, and it's like
That might have been the only joke I laughed at in the whole episode.
I laughed at the you're the Jackie Chan of human shielding. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then they bring back the like Roy game, you know, like that whole Rick and Morty gag where they're inside like a game.
Oh, because it's another device that has a story in it.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then they like get confused and they make him exist on two planes of reality at the same time. And then they do like a weird like this like sex sketch where they're like a cult and they fuck.
Yeah,
and then
this is Dan Harmon talking about the NoFap movement.
yeah, but like it's also talking about like saving yourself for marriage as well, right?
Yeah, which is what the NoFap thing is broadly about, I think.
No, I think NoFap is about like how.
Or it's a lot of the same people.
No,
at
it's
least.
about like how if you don't like touch yourself, you become like more attractive to women.
Oh, I thought it was like a spirituality thing.
Yeah, it's partly that as well, but it's like
um,
scientists have said your eyes become more dilated if you haven't orgasmed, and like and that like women, your sense changes, and that women find you more attractive.
Yeah. You have a different aura when you don't masturbate.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, yeah, because this guy says we're keeping him alive, like we all live in his dying mind, but if we don't have sex, we keep him alive longer, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty analogous to just the religious side of NoFap, I guess, which is if you don't touch your little factory, which is what the Mormon prophets call it. If you don't touch your little factory, then Jesus will like you more, and you'll have the spirit to be with you more of the time.
Right.
So it's kind of similar, but yeah.
So it kind of reminds me of like a Python episode, because like Monty Python, in the way that it transitions its like skits, is they will just like fluently go from one thing into another thing, and it won't really make much sense, and there won't be much continuity. Like I quite like this police training video skit thing that they did, because it was like a pretty simple gag, and it worked for me. But
I think, like it's fun to have Rick and Morty suddenly appear in the chairs and have a little back and forth that happens. But this is far enough into the episode that there needs to be more of an established purpose to any of what's happening.
well, yeah, exactly, because it's by this point that you start to realize like, oh, none of this stuff like that I'm trying to keep attention of like matters. Like none of these little plot details.
Invested.
Yeah, it's not worth like even caring, and I'm just here for the gags, basically.
Yeah, and then the gags are, what they are, which we've already talked about.
Yeah, and
here's something that I was wondering is in terms of like investment in the entire episode. Do you think it would have been better if they had showed the commercial for the train toy like at the beginning, or at least toward the beginning, so that we at least knew that was what was holding all of this together?
No, because I think that if they had done that, it would have put pressure on them to make the little stories more like interesting and funnier. Like, because
they would have had to make a good episode of television.
Yeah, I think if they went into this being like, oh, we're just gonna do this like random train, and it's kind of like this like crazy toy that like simulates like different kind of adventures, and like the whole point is that you like sit and watch it, I think, then they would have been like, oh, what kind of stuff? But instead they I don't know, but like instead it was like, it's like they had like some sort of plot, and then it was like, fuck you, that's the twist.
The twist is there is no plot.
The twist is there wasn't a plot. Like
the episode was bad the whole time.
But it's got like a story like structure, so it doesn't imply that it's gonna have like, it's going to be mostly gags, and they repeat the scorpion thing as well, and they repeat the body thing. Like it's got very little like actual material like in it, and for like its debut episode, like, and considering that like it took them so long to make these episodes, like you really have to be like wondering like if after these 5 episodes they're really going to be making any more. I think these might be the last episodes we get.
Yeah,
I think they are very burnout, because like, do you think they are going to bring back Eye Patch Morty, or like do you think if they do that, then the whole thing is just going to be like tainted now, because they've already just like said they don't really take it seriously and it doesn't matter?
I mean, I don't think that there's a scenario where they bring back Eye Patch Morty and it's good, but at least from their perspective, right. I think they probably don't want to bring back Eye Patch Morty because that's catering to the fans, which they've shown they obviously don't want to do.
Right.
And they think that they're very special and cool and smart for not doing that. So I think that they would see that, even though that's like they probably should do it, even though I don't want them to, because I'm not the kind of fan that they should be trying to appeal to right now.
Well, you're not
people
even
who
a
are
fan.
Actually still trying to stay invested. And so I think like if they were to bring back Eye Patch Morty, they would feel like they were stooping to the level of the fans, and then there would just be no integrity left in their show, and they have no more integrity as storytellers, when like that's kind of already happened, and they just haven't accepted it yet.
I think this is when they've accepted that they have no interesting stories to tell, and they're not like it's kind of like the last season was like the polar opposite, where they were actually like trying to like give it like ideas and like themes and like character arcs, but they like really fucked that up with like the last episode. And then this season they kind of like feel like they ought to do that, and now are insecure that they just want to write fart jokes and just like a bunch of like references to like cum and like dicks, and like that's all they really want to do as artists, but they're like insecure about that, so they have to like criticize themselves in the piece they're making.
Yeah, but then while also
even
criticizing the
though
people who have
even though
already been
no
criticizing them for the same things.
even though no one cares about Rick and Morty anymore. Like, it's not like they even have that big of a spotlight on them. It's not like
Yeah, no.
anyone's even watching it now. Like, people don't even care about this show. Like, that should be freeing for them, but instead it just makes them really insecure.
Yeah, it's just it's sad to watch, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that this season so far has been like, just to use kind of a an underthought out analogy. Um like the story circle train. I think that this season is like a bad version of season 1 and season 3 as it currently exists, just like thrown in a blender. And
Yeah.
with more Dan Harmon tears like mixed into it. I think like this episode in particular, I think the writing process. I mean, you theorized that there was a lot of Justin Roiland improv, and then they tried to like work something around it. And I'm just imagining Dan Harmon sitting at his fucking laptop at like 2 a.m. and just farting out some absolute dog shit. Just expressing his own insecurities about his writing, as you said, and frustrations with fans of the show and feminists, and then people that he thinks are stupid, like the nofap dudes, and like all of Christianity, I guess. And so he's just very vindictive and very angry at a lot of things at once, and splatters it all onto the page. And then they're like, okay, I guess all of this like happens in a train, and since none of this is connected or has any unifying theme at all, we'll say that that's the unifying theme, is that it's all random Rick and Morty themed bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
And then now we have an episode. Now we only have 4 episodes left to make for the rest of the season. And then we'll just get the animators to do a really, really good job and like probably underpay them, because that's rampant in the industry. And then it's done, and then we don't have to make Rick and Morty anymore, and we're free.
Yeah.
Like, I'm jumping to a lot of conclusions, very unsubstantiated.
I don't know,
conclusions, but it's just what I'm imagining. Like, it's the vibe that this episode gives off.
Yeah, you know when like Rick says to Morty, "I'll just like come up with a story that doesn't involve us, like any story," and like Morty goes like, "Oh, that guy he's hungry, is like a fat guy at the door," and then like the scorpions attack.
And then there's scorpions again.
No, this is the first time.
Or no, this is the first scorpions. Yeah.
Yeah, that just sounds like Justin Roiland in a booth, like trying to do like some interdimensional like cable gag, but like it's not really very good or funny. So then they have to be like, oh well, that's part of it. Like, but it's kind of funny. Like, it did kind of make me laugh. Like, it's not even that unfunny, but it's like not clever humor in any way.
It's not Justin Roiland being bad at telling a story or being funny. It's Morty being bad.
Yeah, it's Morty's story.
And that makes it funny.
Yeah, the exact quote is, "It was supposed to be awful. I just failed to predict how well it would mesh with the themes."
With the themes.
The themes of what?
Which
like
this
what?
Episode apparently has. Like,
the
I don't
themes
know.
of what? Like
of writing being hard. So
writing expectations, like failing to like handle pressure of like audience like pressure. Like what? What are the themes?
Yeah, as we like.
And this is the thing. This is the thing that actually annoys me, though, Chard. Is that like I saw a tweet today that was like, the newest episode is the best one by far. Like, so genius, and I was just like, I really like can't deal with it. Like that people actually still are like saying that this is like a really smart show. Like, it is closer to Family Guy at this point. Like, it is closer to Family Guy.
I think. I mean, I used to have this kind of, back in my, like, Christopher Nolan obsession days, which I feel like a lot of film bro types go through at some point. They're like, oh, Inception is like, oh, it's the best movie ever.
It's just so genius.
Oh my God, it's
it's just layers, man.
You go through that phase where you're like, well, any like fault in a work made by this person must be there on purpose or must be saying something, and I'm just not smart enough to understand what that is, but like I know
exactly
that it's there,
because
right?
that line about like, oh, it meshes
by...
with the themes, and you're like, yeah, there are themes there, but I'm just like too dumb to see them. Like,
oh wow, Dan Harmon, like he's putting his own story circle in this, which revolutionized TV storytelling. It's Dan Harmon's monomyth, and and oh, he's like commenting on his own type of story structure, and like I don't even know what he's saying about it because he just like knows so much about story
But
structure. Like,
then
how could
like
I possibly know? But it's so smart, and the fact that I'm enjoying this means that I'm smart too,
But
or
Dan
something. I don't
Harmon
know.
like encourages these kinds of viewers as well by writing like actually good shit, like the Citadel of Rick and Morty, where they've actually got like some really like good storytelling in there, like so
Yeah,
it's kind of like they do encourage it, like by having Rick like go into his like garage and like almost kill himself but fail, as they have the like music, as they have like Morty like burying like a clone of himself. Like they can't then be like, oh, you can't expect us to like tell any decent story, we just want to do fart jokes, when they've already like encouraged that kind of thought and that audience by saying like, hey, actually we've got like a little bit more to say about the world we're in. And like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, like, and that's like, that is the frustrating thing about the show. Pseudo-intellectual.
yeah. Like they don't recognize what it is about it that people are actually invested in.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I want to address this thing from the chat. Most people just look at Rick and Morty for dumb humor. Yeah, so what we're addressing is like the most dedicated corner of the fan base, which is like the loudest people. So they look like a majority when they're probably not actually. But the thing is that like, and this is anecdotal, so this doesn't prove anything, but at least like all of my friends who
Where's your
used to
data,
watch Rick
Chard?
and Morty for dumb yeah, sorry.
Do you have any data
Like
on that?
all
Can you show me some data on that, Chard?
I'm gonna get all my friends in here right now to give their testimonials of how they don't watch Rick and Morty anymore because it's not entertaining anymore. Because like that, none of them ever thought that it was like the smartest fucking thing ever, or that it said anything deep or anything. Um, but they just have fallen off of watching it because they're not invested in the dumb humor aspect anymore. So that's definitely like it's valid to call that out because yeah, I think most people are in it for that, but like I don't think those are the people who are
But
really still watching or still care.
But people also
Um,
like need to see that the Pickle Rick episode has like Rick talking to like a counselor about like his like systemic like emotional like problems that he's having with Beth, and it's like the Pickle Rick thing is essentially like a really pretentious like wanky like character piece. It's not actually dumb humor, like they are actually striving to make you care and like think about the characters and engage with the story. It isn't just
yeah, like I
one
think
dumb like stupid pickle episode.
yeah, which and definitely a lot of people do like it just for that, but then there are like a lot of people who looked at Pickle Rick as like transcendently smart writing or whatever because um I mean all the stuff I talked about in my first Rick and Morty video of how oh my god, like he's unstoppable against all odds until he has to confront like the deeper emotional
Until
parts
he
of
has to
himself. But like
confront love for his family, which is the one
and
thing he can't
it's very
admit.
overt because they just have an entire 5 minutes of the therapist saying all that shit like very deliberately, so it's impossible to miss it. But and obviously the
Exactly.
writers thought that they were doing something special with that because that's the episode that they submitted for an Emmy and they won somehow.
What?
um
I didn't even
yeah,
know that.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I remember being mad because it beat the funeral episode of BoJack, which was like a lot better. um but anyway, again, getting into other shows.
Talking about
um
BoJack all the time. Did you see
Again, yeah.
the Midnight Gospel?
No, I don't know what you're referring to.
Oh, it's on Netflix. It's really good. Rick and Morty like wishes it could be Midnight Gospel.
Okay, so now
So
now we both have shows that we can plug.
yeah. So the
Nice.
last thing I want to talk about is like the Jesus thing.
Yeah, let's talk about Jesus.
Let's talk about Jesus, Chad. Um. So what were you saying that the whole message of this episode is?
Oh, that Dan Harmon thinks that he's above people and various movements and like schools of thought, and one of those is Christianity. Um,
Right.
and it's like his feeling on it is the most deliberately stated when Rick says he literally came in and saved the day. How in any way is that offensive? So it's like it's another thing that Dan Harmon is insecure about is people getting offended by things that he writes, which has happened a lot. Like that's fairly well known for people who have kept up with Dan Harmon's work. Um, and I guess it's his frustration of like, well, what the fuck do you want? Like, am I not allowed to just talk about something in an episode without you getting offended about it, like no matter how it's portrayed?
But like,
Which I think is a pretty
I
bad faith
don't
statement,
think
because
if
he
I
very obviously does portray Jesus in kind of an offensive way, which like I don't really personally care about, and I don't think a lot of Christians watch the show probably.
well,
But
yeah, I mean, I doubt Christians would have been pissed off if like he didn't do that statement. Like, I don't think Christians would have really cared. Like, I think the point that Dan was trying to do with this was that like, they had all the like stuff for like a great story, like everything's up, the relatability, the broad appeal, and the marketability. This big showdown, and then it to plummet it all down to the bottom. Rick just started talking like very like intensely about Jesus. And like the idea is that if like any piece of media intensely talks about Jesus, then like no one's gonna want to watch it.
yeah,
Which is kind of true, I guess.
it kind of is, yeah, because
Yeah.
all the like God's not dead and stuff is just like a very tiny subgenre that appeals to like evangelicals and nobody else, basically. So
Yeah.
he's not wrong, but I also don't get why he thinks he has to talk about that in this episode. I mean, I do think it is funny when Rick just starts talking
I
about
think
like
it is
accepting
just
our
like,
Lord and Savior and shit.
yeah, I think it is just
But it
like
goes on for way too
gags.
long.
But then like it's like kind of like a trick. And then afterwards it goes into, he does like another rant about like loving capitalism.
Oh yeah, that I have thoughts about that too. This won't be as long as my feminism rant, but like, and it's not that big of a deal because it doesn't last that long, and it is kind of just a throwaway gag. But if you're trying to criticize capitalism, or I would take this as more of a critique of consumerism with his whole thing of your only purpose is to buy more products, Morty. This fails for me for two reasons. Number one, because they're trying to be like, they try to do like a meta self-aware thing where they're like, oh well, we're saying it's bad, but also go buy our products. But also like, if you buy our products on adultswim.com, you're part of the problem, but like still buy our merch. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like it's just this weird
I
flipping
think
like
it's
back
just
and
like
forth,
whenever you have
trying to
like,
have it both ways.
whenever you have Rick like ranting about something, because like Justin Roiland is like a great comic like actor. When you have like Rick just ranting about like one thing that he's really intensely like talking about, like capitalism or Jesus, like either one, like it just usually does come out quite funny. But it's just weird to me that it's like kind of like two of the exact same scenes, and it's stuff they've done before, where like Rick and Morty forever, like blah blah blah, like he's always just like getting really intense up in Morty's face and just like ranting about like something really like weird. And it's like the fact that he does it with Jesus and then he does it with capitalism, even though like we've broken out of it and it's like, oh, thanks for the toy. But it's like, I just find it weird to do the same joke essentially twice.
Yeah, that's definitely like, that definitely makes it worse.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's kind of like, you can't
I
even
personally was more
interpret
annoyed about.
any part of this episode about being about capitalism, even though they like did an episode which kind of looked at like capitalism and like, you know, the class imbalances with the Citadel of Rick. And it's like, it's just weird to me that they just like seem to be like making like a parody or like a worse version of like what they've already done in some kind of like protest against like having to do a show. Like what? Like,
Yeah,
like
'cause they're
why are
just
they
upset that
so
they have
like,
to write a show people used
yeah,
to like.
why are they so like pissed off about like having to write an episode of a TV show, like, and like what, where's it coming from? Like, I don't get it, like, basically.
I think it really is just that they don't have any more ideas, and they want to pretend that that's not their fault. Like, oh, it's because people's standards are too high. They
Oh,
want
yeah,
too
and-
many things out of our stories, so we can't possibly deliver. When they did deliver pretty consistently for 2 entire seasons on what people wanted to see,
Yeah.
what
And
connected
then-
with people and entertained people.
And then there's a a reference to coronavirus as well.
Yeah, which felt
At the
very
very-
thrown in, but
Which
like,
at the
it's
very
fine.
end, like a little gag about the virus.
Yeah, bringing in the capitalism thing
Hey,
again, but like
the
nobody's even
economy's
buying anything
collapsing.
right now. You have to stimulate the economy by consuming. So like I guess that's them criticizing like the protesters who want to reopen everything or something, but also that probably has been happening too recently for them to have put that in. It's like
Yeah.
I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
As far as the whole like capitalism critique thing though, like I think um like I said, the fact that they plug their own merch, it kind of takes away from it a little bit. But also the fact that earlier this season they had Elon Musk on as a guest.
Oh man,
He's
Elon
one of the
Musk.
richest people.
Elon
Like
Musk has just had his child with Grimes.
Yeah, good for them.
Do you know what they called the baby?
I did hear, but I don't remember. What are they calling their baby?
Like AXA12.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's a prophet child.
Okay, well if it's one of those, I hope it's at least like the.
It's going to be part of the new Musk religion.
But yeah, like I don't
know.
You get to like you don't get to fraternize with Elon Musk and be all buddy with one of the richest people in the world, known for his like countless labor violations and like anti-union shit. And then like do a thing where you say capitalism is bad. Like again, you can't have it both ways. And I think going back to the Citadel of Rick's episode, whatever it's actually called, Rick Lantis Mix Up, yeah. Like I don't think that like you can read that episode as being about the problems of capitalism, and like I think that is how I initially read it. But in retrospect, I don't think that it's very incisive. Like it doesn't. It looks at a lot of individual problems that result from capitalism, just in terms of class conflict and how it's not a meritocracy and all this kind of stuff. But it doesn't point to capitalism as the problem. It kind of just like observed problems and then put them in the episode, and then like that's all that it really does with it. So I don't think that that's really like a good example of like real capitalist critique. And I don't think we're going to find that in Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Like a show made by people who are actual friends with Elon Musk of all fucking people.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there we go. I mean, like, if you're looking for just like dumb random humor, then like go for it.
I mean, there are better things.
There are better ways you can spend your time, but like, yeah, I mean, why not? It's like not got like a concept. It's not got like any themes, and it's all a waste of time.
I think it's the thing that really ruins it, I think, is that it carries itself so highly and is pretending to have things to say with all the meta commentary bullshit. I know. Because if you want to just do random humor, then fine. Like that's why Interdimensional Cable 1 is still like one of everybody's favorite episodes of this show, because that's very much what that is, but it isn't trying to be anything more than that. I mean, there is a little bit more of like a character arc with Beth and Jerry and stuff, but
that's actually good.
Yeah, it's executed well, but it's not like the thing that makes people like that episode. I don't think like it puts a little meat on the bones, but it's people like that episode because of the dumb random humor, because that's the thing that it's centrally focused on. So this like is trying to do that while also having a unifying theme. And what even is that? I don't know. Storytelling is hard. Bad storytelling on purpose is something. Fucking I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think Dan Harmon is frustrated and annoyed at a lot of things, and I'm frustrated and annoyed that I have to watch him take that out on millions of people who used to like the thing that he made. And I'm just repeating myself at this point, but
And so is this show.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys.
At least we got to hear again that Rick is a god and nothing matters. I'm glad they reminded us this week.
Yes. Yeah. So guys, let us know what you thought about this episode down in the comments, and join us next week for another Rick and Morty review.
Maybe this episode won't make me want to kill myself.
I don't know. I hope every single episode at this point is just like them deconstructing like the story they're in. like
just exposing for everyone how
like
bad the show is,
extends
like for people who didn't know it yet.
Like it starts off with like Morty's like sitting upstairs in his room and he's like, God, I can't come up with any idea for my novel. Maybe
For my
maybe
heist
Rick
script.
can help me come up with an idea. And he like phones Rick and like Rick fucking like takes him to Story World. I don't know.
They go to Story World and it's just a bunch of like people like sprawled out, dejected on the floor. And Rick is like, Morty, everyone who's ever made a story like doesn't actually know what they're doing, and everyone expects too much of them. And maybe you should just shut the fuck up, Morty, and accept that all stories are actually bad.
I don't know. What if my story's terrible? What if people don't like it?
Morty. I can't do a Rick impression. Yeah, I don't know. It's
That's what I hope. That's my expectations.
I just hope we can reach the bar that was set by the first half of season 4, where there are 2 episodes that are like kind of good because they're just entertaining enough without being pretentious.
Yeah.
Or like without being pretentious enough to ruin it, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the best we can expect at this point.
Yeah. Cool. Well, there goes the review. There we go. So I think I'm just gonna end the stream just because I haven't got really anything else planned. In terms of the stream.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
But yeah, I'll probably be back either tomorrow or the day after to like play some games or like do something for the stream. But yeah, Chard, thank you. I'm gonna end the stream. Anything you want to say before I end this?
Watch Fleabag and BoJack Horseman.
Cheers,
Always
guys.
with the plugs. Bye.